Alrighty, so news of the week episode, and we're just gonna jump straight in terms of talk about latest news in regards to the Bruce Arena saga. As today, it was reported from Taylor Twellman that yesterday when I talked about there was a report saying that Bruce Arena has asked his employee to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Well, Taylor Twellman said that report is completely false, and again, this just continued to get messier and messier in terms of what exactly is going on with the Bruce Arena saga, and that how I said yesterday. I think the reason why we're probably not getting the complete truth is because Bruce Arena decided to ask his employee to sign this non-disclosure agreement and try not to unveil all these confidential information. Well, now it seems like Taylor Twelman basically says that that is not true. So yeah, obviously. I just hope eventually we're going to get to that day where we actually know the whole truth, because again it just feels like as the day goes along we're getting further and further away from the answer than we're actually getting from the truth, and all these conflicted sources are just kind of hard to make you believe what is actually true. Now I do believe Taylor Twellman, what he's reported is correct. Taylor Twellman, as much as I know, he's one of the most annoying co-commentators according to a lot of fans in around MLS. He's definitely a credible source in terms of reporting these news. So I do believe that what he's telling it is the truth. But again, it just makes it even more murkier in terms of what has already been just a a just a crazy kind of on endless loop of confusion in terms of this whole ordeal with Bruce Arena and the New England Revolution in general. Now, that being said, there was also a very interesting news that, if it wasn't for the Bruce Arena saga, this would have been a big news too, where CF Montreal midfielder Michael Mayevic play under a false identity in the Quebec Amateur League, and he got a lifetime ban recently due to punching a player in the face in a recent game. Now, obviously, I have seen some crazy thing that has happened in MLS in recent years. This is probably going to go down as one of the craziest one. I mean, I never would have thought that a player like Mako Majevic, who unfortunately he hasn't been getting a lot of minutes this season, I would never thought that he would decided to get more minutes and stay in shape by decided to play under a false identity and play in the Quebec Amateur League, which also kind of just shows you that for those players that are kind of like in the lower tier of the squad, you probably won't get recognized as much from the public as you think they would, and that this would be perfectly fine. I mean, imagine if you go into an other league. Imagine if you go to, like, let's say right now with the NFL going on right now. Imagine a NFL player not getting enough minute and decided to play under a false identity in a lower amateur league, or even play in a college football game. That is, I mean, that probably wouldn't work that out well. But because of the fact that in MLS, when you have these guys that are kind of in the lower tier of the roster, kind of occupy this supplementary roster slot, I guess you can actually get away with that. But it's kind of crazy that he got away with it, but even more crazier the fact that he eventually got a lifetime ban for that. So yeah, very crazy, very kind of wacky kind of news, but it's just kind of a news that fits MLS in general. I mean, for all those sickos that are thinking of all kinds of crazy things that happen in an MLS game, well, let's add another latest news in terms of an MLS player literally decided to play under a false identity in an amateur league, and also to make it even more crazier, not a lifetime ban because he just cannot control his emotion and decide to punch a player in the face. But that being said, the Vancouver Whitecaps, they actually made a signing recently as they signed Canadian international winger Junior Horlet. Now, I think this is a good signing for the Whitecaps, considering they add more depth in terms of that winger spot. They have a really good depth in terms of the winger spot. I mean, first getting Richie Larea and now getting Junior Horlet. And also, it seems like we're starting to see a common theme that the Whitecaps are starting to sign a couple of those Canadian international players, which is something that you usually see Toronto do for a long time. But now it seems like the Whitecaps are doing the same thing, and that, yeah, I think this is definitely a good signing for depth itself. Though there is a report that the Whitecaps is also ready to sell Venezuelan national team forward Sergio Cordova to Turkish side Alice Sport. Now, obviously, Sergio Cordova, it's unfortunate that he didn't really live up up to expectation for the Whitecaps. I mean, I really think that he's kind of been snake bitten for the Whitecaps. I mean, he has shown some flashes that he can be a decent number nine, but again, just as soon as he gone through a dry spell, you can see he was basically missing it, everything. And when you have the likes of Brian White that has been scoring regularly for this Whitecaps team, it's no surprise that Cordova has dropped down to the pecking order to a point where they decided to just kind of move on from him. So that this of course does make sense. And again, it's unfortunate because Cordova has shown some sign that he can be a good number nine, can be a goal scorer for this team. He hasn't shown that because there's been times where he has just had so many horrible misses and horrible luck that doesn't go his way. Now, speaking of striker, Danny Muswaski. So he seems to be on a holdout right now, as there's a report that he has not played the last couple of games for RSL due to a conflict in the contract. So originally, when he decided to sign with RSL, they were saying that they were going to work on a long-term contract, and I think that was kind of part of the agreement. Well, fast forward a couple of years later, it seems like RSL is still not reaching the long-term agreement, and Danny Muswaski obviously is not happy about that. He feels like they RSL did not agree to what they kind of like a gentleman agreement, the fact that we are going to work out a long-term contract after the contract is being signed. But yeah, we'll see whether or not if this of course does resolve, because Danny Muswowski, I think he's been having a good season for RSL this year, and he could definitely provide some good depth for this team. I mean, imagine having the likes of Chicharango and then eventually able to bring on Muswowski off the bench. That's a really good option for RSL if they can of course lock him down to a long-term contract. Speaking of long-term contracts, so Sporting KC, they have resigned Alan Polito to a new DP contract, and I think this basically puts the end of whether or not if Alan Polito is going to move on from Sporting KC. Now, I do think that, I can understand why there was the rumor of Alan Polito potentially leaving Sporting KC, and that Sporting KC maybe decide not to re-sign him to a new contract, because he's been very injury prone. Like ever since he arrived to Sporting KC and in MLS, he's been very injury prone. But if there is one thing we know about Alan Polito, is that if he stay healthy, he's definitely gonna go down as one of the best number 10 or one of the best number nine in the league. In fact, look at what he has done ever since he had come off the injury reserve list. He's been an absolute stud and have really provided a lifeline to the Sporting KC attack. So yeah, makes sense the fact that they decided to sign him to a new DP contract. Though again, there is definitely risk of that because he's been injury prone, and that they're hoping that that is not going to be the case, because again it feels like it is a dilemma that they had to face, and especially there were definitely strong interest in Liga MX, especially from Chivas, but Sporting KC said nope, we're decided going to keep him and we're going to sign him to a new DP contract. Now, Lionel Messi, it was reported that he actually did not play against Bolivia, and he could actually be ready against Atlanta United. Now, obviously, Inter Miami, the good news for them is that they're going to get Messi back this weekend. I actually heard there was a report that he was going to miss like free game for Inter Miami. That turns out to be completely false, because I then look at the schedule and then realize that Argentina, their final pre or well, it's not a preseason friendly, but a World Cup qualifying game. It's anything but a preseason friendly. Their World Cup qualifying game in the CONMEBOL region is against Bolivia, and it's in September 14, and that's the September window. That's not the final World Cup qualifying game that Argentina is going to play in the CONMEBOL region. But because of the fact that the game was on the road against Bolivia, and if you know anything about Bolivia and you know anything about La Paz, Bolivia, it is literally one of the toughest place to play, and not right up there in terms of the toughest place to play, mainly due to the altitude. I mean, the altitude is like 12,000 feet. There's always a reason why, even though Bolivia is definitely one of the weakest, if not the weakest team in the Congo region, they have such a good home field advantage because of the altitude, and knowing the fact that I'm pretty sure Lionel Messi, he won no part of playing in a game where they have to play in high altitude. And plus I think Argentina has already been in a good position in terms of the CONMEBOL region. Lionel Messi basically said he's not going to risk it. He's going to try to rest himself and getting and able to get himself ready to play against Atlanta. And again, that's great news for Inter Miami, because now you're gonna have a well rested Messi back in the game against Atlanta United, and definitely will be rested enough where he's definitely gonna make an impact in that game against Atlanta United. I mean, don't be surprised he's gonna score a goal or two, or even get an assist or two against Atlanta United, because this is the greatest player of all time we're talking about. And after all, the script basically says that Inter Miami is going to continue to make their charge to the playoffs, which I feel like is imminent with the way that they're now, just 6 points behind the red line, but they do have 2 games in hand over the team that that is currently occupied the last spot, that is DC United. Now, the Colorado Rapids. So we talk about how it's been a terrible season for them, but the supporter group, they definitely released a statement. They did not mince words in terms of their frustration toward the disastrous season that the Colorado Rapids had, and most of the statement that they mentioned is kind of what you expected. They're very frustrated in terms of the ownership group not spending any money to invest in the team, and also very frustrated with the front office too, and how they've been dealing with, but mostly share their frustration toward the ownership and Cronky Sports Entertainment, and then not to mention they also share the frustration in terms of the facility around Dick's Sporting Goods Park. Remember, the league basically had to step in terms of trying to force the Rapids in terms of updating their training facility because it was so run down, and things are bad when the league is basically trying to step in terms of forcing you to invest in the training facility and also the facility around Dick's Sporting Goods Park. But yeah, I mean, I can understand the frustration, and that you know I don't know if that's going to do anything, because if you want to talk about some of the most hated ownership group in MLS, the Cronky Sports Entertainment and the ownership by the Colorado Rapids group are probably right up there in terms of the worst ownership group in the league. And again, it's sad to see that has happened. I'm not sure if things are going to change. I'm assuming things will eventually change, because again, the fans, they're gonna be fed up to a point where they're not gonna show up to games, and that we'll see whether that can maybe force the ownership to do something. I mean, it's a tough situation that the Colorado Rapids and their fans have found themselves in. And again, as much as the Rapids fans want the league to step in terms of also deal with the ownership group in terms of forcing them to spend more money, that's just not going to happen. I mean, as long as the Rapids are continuing to turn a profit for the league, as we've seen with all the other team, the league is not going to step in, and that's kind of the sad truth about this whole situation. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of looking at all these news that has happened in the past week or so. I mean, there really isn't a lot of news to talk about because it is the international break. But what we will have in these next couple of days is a lot of MLS game. We got a midweek action. I believe it's going to be the last time this season where we actually going to have a full slate of midweek action, and I'm actually going to be going to one of the games in the midweek action, and it's not in San Jose, that is, but I'll talk more about that in the upcoming days. But yeah, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of all the news I put here on the board, and if there's any news I didn't mention here on the board that you want me to talk about in the comment section. Let me know that in the comment section. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.